Hi everyone, this is Vinesh Sukumaran. Welcome to the Positive Behavior Podcast. As you know, this is a place where I talk about applications of positive psychology, as well as ways to develop and demonstrate positive behavior. So this is the third season. If you've been following this, you know that this is the third season. This is actually the fifth episode of the third season. And what I've been doing is, people close to me in life, I've been talking to them, I've been interviewing them. And I think at some point I woke up to the fact that I know these amazing people. Why not bring them into my podcast channel, talk to them, and bring out some of the positive behaviors from their lives? So that's essentially what I've been doing. And you can find this on all the podcast platforms. You can find it on Spotify, you can find it on iTunes, Google Podcasts, and so on. And from this season onwards, I've also been posting this on YouTube. So you can find a recording of this video conference on YouTube if you like. So my guest today is someone I've known for a long time. He's also been my childhood friend. We went to the same school. We actually also we also stayed in the same neighborhood for some time. And what can I say about Aadarsh? Well, his name is Aadarsh Hariharan, and I call him Adi. He's someone who, even before all this happened, even before I, became a psychologist or learned psychology or, started doing this line of work, I think there are a lot of these positive behaviors. Even before this, way before this podcast even happened, there are a lot of amazing positive behaviors I picked up from Aadarsh myself. So one of the things is, like for example, reading. I think I can completely attribute Aadarsh to being the person who sort of got me into reading. I remember him giving me some books. I never used to read earlier. When I was 15, 16, I wasn't a big fan of reading. So he gave me Godfather and said, this is a book that will get you hooked. And I started reading it. I didn't really read the whole book. So then he gave me another book, and then he would talk about reading. I think he's one of the people who really got me into this, into reading, and became a big part of my life. He's also someone who I think, it's not just reading, it's not just movies, but also I think I picked up a lot of things from Aadarsh by just sort of being around him. The way he would talk, the way he would put his ideas across, the way he would treat people. Okay, so I'm not going to give away too much. I am going to allow Aadarsh to talk about that. So, Adi, welcome to the Positive Behavior Podcast. Thanks for taking the time out. I know it's morning there in Seattle. Thanks for taking the time out to be here.
It's my pleasure, Vinesh. And yeah, I'm really thrilled to be here on your podcast.
Sure. Super. So, before we begin, I know a lot about you. I think we've, spent a lot of time together. You want to say something about yourself and your background, so that, when we go further into this podcast, people know where the great ideas are coming from.
Yeah, happy to, Vinesh. So my name is Aadarsh Hariharan. I also go by Adi Hariharan. I am from Bangalore, but now I live in Seattle with my wife Chaitanya and dog Imli. Quick background about myself. I went to school with my really good friend Vinesh in PAPS, or Frank Anthony Public School. When we were in school, we were a band of childhood friends. And the best part is that this band of childhood friends continue to be my best friends even today. That's about 20 or 30 years after we had that experience together. Then I did a brief stint in Bishop Cotton's boys' school for my 11th and 12th, where I gathered another set of precious friends, and they also continue to be my really good friends even today. Then I did my mechanical engineering at University Visvesvaraya College of Engineering, or UVCE in short. And then I started musicyogi.com with our really good friend Sunil Khemchandani. It was an online music and movie store that also specialized in independent music. So Sunil and I ran Music Yogi for about 4 years, and I'll tell you, that was some of my best years in my life. And then I went to business school. Then after business school, I interned, and I continued to work at this large tech company based out of Seattle as a director of marketing.
Okay, super. So Yeah, I think you mentioned Sunil. Sunil's going to be a guest in one of the later podcasts. And I'm not going to say much about Sunil right now, so we'll figure that out. So thanks for that introduction, Aadarsh. And since you mentioned we've spent a lot of time, together from school. Right from school, we would look, in school it was looking forward to those times when exams got over and we had all these plans, we'd do these things, go out to places and so on. And just like that, I think when we started working, though we did things that excited us, we always looked for those evenings or weekends or breaks, and we've taken vacations together and so on. So later I realized that this idea of what you do apart from work is also a big part of it's a big part of positive psychology. So you want to say something about what you do apart from your life in Microsoft or your day-to-day life as a working professional?
Yeah. So the first thing, I like it. I like the simple things. The simple things really give me a lot of joy. I do like spending my evenings with my wife Chaitanya, taking my dog Imli out for a walk, and also spending time with her, maybe doing a little bit of work out in the garden, or maybe cooking some dinner together. And I also look forward to having a really good time with the people that I care about, my family and my friends. Nothing really beats having a beer or a coffee with a really good friend. The other thing that we also like doing is to find a beautiful kind of outdoor spot that people have not found or overlooked, and do a little bit of a hike or a walk with our dog Imli, or just a small little picnic with some beer and wines and some food, or maybe just go have a swim in a lake or a river. And sometimes it's a quiet stuff, Vinesh. It's about picking up a really good book that you've been looking forward to reading, or cycling, or as I mentioned, I really started to enjoy working in my garden. And I think all of these pulled together is a great way to have a good time outside of work.
Nice, super. So, I like the fact that almost everything that you mentioned is easily accessible. Typically, when you're talking about things that you do out of work, people are thinking about, the big things, adventure and going skydiving and so on. But I like the fact that you're picking these really simple things and talking about it. So, one of the things that even people listening to this podcast, or, most people who are reading a book, especially in the whole domain of self-help, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get some things right. And this idea also turns out that this is really what positive psychology is all about. It's about looking at a system and looking at what's going right, looking at an organization and looking at what's going right, what they're doing well and expanding on it, looking at people and looking at what they're doing right in life and so on. So what are some things, you've got to where you are today, you've achieved so much. You're so humble about your achievements. You have a lake, you're talking about swimming in a lake, there's a lake right behind your house. And so you've done all these things in life. What do you think are some things that you did right or you got right? And of course, I'm not talking about those things that happened by sheer luck. Because, that's not something that somebody can listen to and say, I wish I get lucky. But what are some things that you think you did, which, in retrospect are the right things?
Yeah, that's a great question, Vinesh. This is one that you made me think a little deeply about. It starts with trusting yourself. It starts with you. It needs to start with you telling yourself that you have this infinite capacity to create impact in this world, and you're going to do it in your own unique way. And you have to start working on it, and you have to build that belief over a long period of time. And it starts with a couple of steps. First, it starts by being really open to learning and adapting every time you get new information. And the good thing is that you get new information all the time. You get new information when you try new things, when you're talking to people, or when you're reading stuff. And what really counts at the end of the day is what you do with the information. It's not about absorbing it. It's about acting on it. And then you have to get into this place of self-awareness. Now, self-awareness is really not an easy thing to do, but it is one of the most powerful toolkits if you have it. And you really have to get deep down and be brutally honest with yourself and ask yourself what really helps you succeed and the places where you need to really work on. We all have gaps. We all have shortcomings, and it's perfectly human to have those gaps and shortcomings. And it's about understanding your strengths and then working on your gaps is when you'll be able to then be able to build your capacity to create impact. And then figure out, what your goals are. And many times it's not about those moonshots. It's about those little wins. Try to get those little wins under your belt and really get into the habit of finishing stuff with a high degree of quality and polish. And over a period of time, you have to be known as the person who delivers that high quality stuff. Next, you got to be open to taking help from people. I take help all the time. And you take help by sharing your ideas, being open to your thoughts, and being open to taking mentors. There are people out there who are willing to help you and give you a ton of great advice. I have a ton of mentors. And honestly, without them, I would have struggled to get to where I am today. For instance, our really good friend Pervez Tehrani, his dad, Dr. Ristam Tehrani, coached and gave me feedback on my business school essays. Honestly, without him, I would not have gotten to Wharton, and I would not have been able to put together the high quality essays without his help and support. And my uncle and my brother and my wife have also been great mentors, guiding me all along the way. And the last one is, I manage a team of people, and I also have the opportunity to work with several teams. And here's what I've observed. The people who drive maximum value are people who actually approach it with a fairly egoless way of doing things. Now, it's a funny paradox. You want to be able to go and build all these things and drive and create impact for yourself. But you want to be able to do it with others. And you want to be able to bring others along for the journey. And if you're able to do it with others, your impact will be way bigger than what you would have been able to achieve if you were to do it all by yourself. And if you were to do it in an egoless way, you just make that experience a lot more richer for others as well. So I think it's a combination of these, Vinesh, that I think that has really helped me to get to where I am today.
Right. So I'm just gonna try to bring some of those ideas out. I like what the first thing that you said. I think that's a really clear, targeted message. Tell yourself that you have this capacity to create a huge impact in the world. So I think that idea of telling yourself is pretty strong. Learn, find out where your gaps are, get honest feedback and work on it. I like the fact that you focused on taking action and not just, being passive about it, and getting help. And, you've acknowledged all the people who've helped you, the fact that you help others. What's the other thing that you said? Did you say it was egoless? You approach things in an egoless fashion? Is that what you said?
I think it's about making sure that you can bring others along for the journey. And as you create impact, try to do that in an egoless way. If you can remove yourself out of the picture and then put yourself in a place where you can think of doing it with others and not just by creating impact all by yourself. It's about doing it by supporting others and bringing others for the journey is when you can create the greater impact.
All right, super. So one of the things that you mentioned, you did speak about succeeding and getting to where you are. When it comes to success, when I'm working with people, when I'm coaching people, each one has their own metric as well as definition of what success means to them. For somebody it's buying a bigger car, for somebody it's buying a mansion, somebody it's world travel, for someone else it's getting a college degree or a PhD, and so on and so forth. Having gone through life, having had the experiences that you've had, what do you think are ideal pursuits for anybody? What do you think people should what do you think are smart or at least meaningful things for people to go after?
So let me tell you about what I like to go after ideally. Honestly, for me, it's about rich life experiences, and that's what defines what life is for me. And I put it into a few buckets. Let me start with the first one. It's lived experiences. These experiences of enjoying things around you, and they happen all the time. They happen when you travel, when you see new places, new cultures, new people, or when you experience nature around you, when you stop for a moment and you enjoy the beauty around you. And also you get it when you spend time with people that you really care and love. Nothing honestly remotely comes to that feeling of joy when you're able to spend a moment of richness and goodness with a person that you really care about. The next bucket, in my opinion, is what I call as gained experiences. These are experiences that you get as you live your life, the lessons that you pick up along the way. For instance, Vinesh, I've learned a lot from you, from our other friends, from a brother, from Chaitanya. These are great lessons that come from also when you work. And they're everyday experiences that ultimately shape your thinking and build who you are. Sometimes when you work your tail off on a really hard problem and you solved it, apart from giving you, this great satisfaction, it also forced you to learn a great deal and become a lot more wiser and mature. And again, provides us great gained experiences in your life. And the last bucket for me is shared experiences. These are experiences that you share again with people that are close to you. Sometimes you actually have a life experience vicariously through the eyes of another person. Like for instance, Vinesh, you have a great way of telling stories. And I really enjoy living that moment through your stories and the way you tell them. And again, that is a rich experience for me. And that's worth life as it is, as I know it. And another joy of life is when when you meet someone who shares some of the same interests as you do in music, books, or movies, and then over a period of time, you become good friends. And those are one of those joys in life for me as well. And to pull it all together, I think those are things that for me are kind of like make those great ingredients for a really good life.
Right. So, I think the only way to answer this question is personally, because it's different strokes for different folks, right? And essentially making sure, I love this idea of going after experiences. So one is individual experiences and also shared experiences. And I like what you said in the end that, it's these things in the end which actually get you in touch with and helps you build relationships with people who really later matter to you. So, one big idea of one big method in positive psychology of looking at what's going well, looking at what's right, is to look at strengths. So sometimes it's the strengths of an organization, of a team, and so on. So what do you think are some of your strengths? And, there's a lot of research around, when people are using their strengths at work or in their lives, they're actually the happiest. They're perhaps the most engaged. They enjoy what's happening, the experience flow, and so on. So what do you think are some of your strengths? And also talk a bit about how these became your strengths. And, how did they really help you because they were your strengths? Because I'm sure somebody who's listening to this would identify this and say, look, if that was a good strength, how do I get it? So you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, sure can. So let me start with like positivity and optimism. I've generally been a pretty optimistic person, and I honestly prefer it over the alternative. I hear arguments that people make that it's best to be cautious. It's always, it's better to be prepared for a suboptimal outcome. I personally feel that that is limiting, as life would be an unending steps of caution. Well, I believe in the opposite. I believe in the art of what's possible, because then that opens up a whole world of possibility for me. The second one is a little bit of like rationality and maturity. I'm optimistic, but I'm not foolishly optimistic. I know my strengths, but I also know I have a great degree of self-awareness about my limitations. And I don't take chances with my limitations either. So if I can't control the outcome of something, I really don't play the game. I think I'll make a horrible gambler. That being said, I do like taking some risks though, but I don't like making wild bets. But I take risks to push myself and push the boundaries a little bit. Again, goes back to the whole idea of the art of what's possible. You have to ask yourself if you have this capacity to do something that is slightly beyond you, and then be able to go after it and try to get there. And the next one is being goal-oriented. And I generally try to articulate to myself as to what I want, and then try to get firm about it, and then go after it with a fair degree of tenacity. And then also with a good dose of risk-taking as well. And then once I have set myself on those goals, and then I try to put my blinders on and then go after it pretty hard. It helps me to get focused on the big and the most important things and not really get swayed by the little things. And then I don't give up that easily. So I remember when I was writing my GMAT for the first time, I thought I'd prepared well, but in reality, I really had not. My approach was generally a spaghetti of methods from different books and different websites. I ended up getting, I think, like somewhere in the 600s. I knew it wasn't a great score. And so then I'd go back to the drawing board and start all over again. But then this time I built a different way of doing things. I built my way of cracking the problems. And it worked. And I passed that, dreaded 700 threshold in the GMAT. And that really helped me go and apply for the business school that I wanted to apply to. And the last one, Vinesh, is that I'm generally not an envious person. I think that's one of the biggest gifts I've received. The way I look at it is that life for every person is an unending gift of experiences. And each person's lived experience is rich. They have their life's richness and I have mine. And one's life is not any less richer because we don't have the means or talents that our neighbors have. So I generally don't crave for what I don't have. And so these, again, sum up the strengths as far as I've seen it, that really helped me through life.
Right. So I'm just going to pick on some of these. Okay, so you said you're not an envious person and that's just something that came to you naturally. So I'm going to just park that. I'm going to leave that out. Because from what you're saying, you also didn't do anything much to sort of develop that. I want to go back to the first couple of things that you said. One of the things that you said is you're generally an optimistic person. You like that more out of choice and perhaps also out of instinct. You said you set goals and then you put blinders and you go after it, right? So can you just talk about these two things? How do you do that? How do you be, especially if somebody who's listening to this and they're saying, why am I so pessimistic? Why do I keep looking at what's not possible? Do you have any thoughts on what they could do to become more optimistic? That's one thing. And secondly, also on the point about goals, you can set goals, but the biggest problem that people have is going after it. How can someone just put blinders on and go after it? What does that look like and what do they do in reality?
Yeah, let's start with the optimism. Right. Well, let's do a little bit of a thought exercise. If you can. Go back about 10 or 20 years in your life. What do you remember most about your time and your life? This may not be true for everybody, but but when I try it, it's mostly true for me that I tend to remember the good stuff. The everyday fears that you had, the worries that you experienced back then have mostly faded away. And what's really stuck are the really good stuff. Now, it's ultimately the positive experiences that stick with you and define who you are. Maybe it's a brain that does a really good job of filtering out the bad stuff and just sticking with the good stuff. But truly, you want to stop for a moment and think, it's the good stuff that really counts. Now make no mistake, some of the fears are good. They do spur us into action. But let's not overly get fixated on those fears and anxiety, because they can limit you in your capacity to do amazing things. And at the end of the day, they don't really count. It's the good stuff that really counts. And I'm hoping that will help you drive towards having a level of optimism and build that level of positivity in your life. And then if you really want something, now desires is a human thing. I'd say go after it, pursue it. Now, you don't need to pursue it in a selfish way. You can pursue it because you really want to. And your path of pursuit will actually help you learn and become a lot more mature. And as you do it, you just need to remember that it's not what you do that counts, but how you do it also matters. And make sure that when you do things in a way that aligns with your principles and your values. And then goes back to the point of putting on blinders, Vinesh. It's about knowing when to go after those big things and not get distracted with the little things. And so the things that you need to do is to challenge yourself. Challenge yourself to do tough things. You don't need to do it all the times, but find a way to push yourself a little more. The tougher, the better. And as you take on bigger challenges and you solve bigger problems, you're kind of also rewiring and revectoring your brain to focus on the big things, and you really start worrying less about the little things. And then go try to shoot for the things that are slightly out of your reach. You'll actually surprise yourself. And then when you get down to it, choose to act, get in and get it done. Now, I remind myself that no one really got rewarded for not doing anything. Now, again, it's a human thing. It's a human trait. I don't think we can sit idle. I think if I remember right, I think even the Gita says it, that humans are bound to action. You have to act. You have to build, and as Amazon calls it, a bias for action. And what you need to do is just give in to your innate ability to act. And next, make sure that you have these rich experiences. Remember, the big lofty goals are great, and you really want to go after them, and you want to have a few, and you have to find a way to build your capacity to go after them. But while you do that, remember the magic is in the everyday. And here's my little piece of advice. Don't get so wrapped up in your big ambitions, then you miss the chance to experience the everyday that makes life rich. I hope that was useful to you, Nish.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So, starting with, one big part of what you're saying is that, do things which are aligned with your values. And I think that really makes you go after things because, you're being authentic and you're going after the right things. I think what you spoke earlier about daily wins. So I think if I just club that with what you said in the end, I think it's exactly what happens if you're just waiting to reach or to hit that jackpot and then celebrate, you're going to miss out on every single day. So I think those small wins every single day, I think will get you there. And also, let me also just reiterate this idea of optimism. I think that's a fantastic exercise. I was just doing it as you were talking. I was doing it to myself, and I had the same experience. It's really the good stuff that you remember, and since that's the case, I think it makes sense to work your life out that way. Just a thought on what you said in the end about action. I think there's a lot of research out there which actually says we do have a bias towards action. The whole phenomenon of pressing the elevator button, waiting there, the elevator has not come, but you want to just press it again. You feel it's better to just do something than not do something. But I think what I want to emphasize from what you said is it's important that we carry this to the big things in our life, the big goals, or the other things that we're after, like happiness or peace of mind or whatever. Okay, so I want to just shift tracks a bit. One of the places, or let me just say, one of the times in life when people are really seeking help, looking at advice, looking at finding out the right thing for themselves is when things are tough. We've had tough times for a lot of people across the world because of the pandemic. So what is it that I'm sure you've gone through tough times in your own life? What is it that you did, or what are some things that helped you get through those tough times in life? You want to say something about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I tend to remind myself that, we've heard this in school. Many people have told us, but let me tell you, it's true. Adversity is a great teacher. And then when you have a tough time, you will come out of it, and you will come out of it being better and stronger and tougher than you were before you actually went through that tough time. Now, when you're going through that tough time, looking for that kind of silver lining is challenging, especially when you're in the middle of that big shit pot. But it's the tough times truly that make you better. And then it also helps you grow and become a lot more mature. If you have an opportunity to talk to a farmer, they will actually tell you that plants generally will give you a better fruit if they've gone through a period of drought versus those that have been watered regularly. So it is something that happens in life, and it happens in nature. And every person goes through this tough period. Nobody can escape it. And so I don't think you need to really ask yourself, why me? Because everybody is going through a tough period or has gone through a tough period. One of the things I try to do, Vinesh, is I try to consider the absolute worst case scenario. Try to visualize it. Try to visualize what rock bottom would really look like. And consider what life would be if that were to happen. Once you reconcile yourself to the worst case scenario, then things won't look as bad as what you thought it's going to be as you go through that period of a tough time. And then from then on, everything will start looking like an upside. Like, for example, I was in my, I think I just finished my first year of business school. I just did my internship in the company that I'm currently working in. I just wrapped my internship, but then I found out that my internship didn't convert. And then I also got a call to that my dad was going through a fairly serious surgery at that point of time. And so it was being right in the middle of a perfect storm. And then things sucked for a fair period of time. But then, considering the worst case scenario really helped me at that point of time. It's about like taking that quiet time and thinking through what life could possibly be if the outcomes just didn't turn out the way you expected it to turn out, and it just turned out for the worse. It was really tough things. It was really a tough thing to do, but it helped me reconcile myself with my emotions. It helped me reorient myself, and then it really helped clear the way for me to start working towards a better outcome. At the end of the day, my dad is doing great, and I think I ended up in a much better team than the team that I interned for, and in the same company too. And so at the end of the day, the outcome was awesome. But you just need to remember that tough times come to every person. Tough times don't last, but tough times just make you a better individual.
Great. So, I think you're one of the people who's answered this particular question, in the clearest way possible. So, one is remember that it's something which is going to make you grow. So, like Haruki Murakami said, the person who goes into the storm is not the same person who comes out of the storm. You're going to be a different person. And I like what you said about visualizing. So when you're inside that storm, imagine what's the worst thing that could happen, and that's going to give you the energy to sort of go on. In fact, I've also heard this and read about this. A lot of times when you think about the worst thing that could happen, and you think about the likelihood, it's almost extremely unlikely that that thing actually happens, and you actually land up in that place in life. And I think that, many people I've coached have told me that that's really helped them. Okay, now, this question's really taking me back to a lot of the things that we've shared. I mean, at least earlier, when we're just out of school and college, it's impossible for us to not remember Parvez Tehrani again. And, we watched a lot of movies together. And I think he really watched so many movies that he'd tell us about it, and we'd end up watching a fraction of that. The other thing is books. We talk about books, exchange books, buy books for each other, with each other, and so on. So this reading and movies, books and movies, just like it was an important part of, or is an important part of our lives, it's also what most people are after. So if you have a problem, you're looking at a solution, you go, say, onto the internet, you'll end up reading something, or you'll end up watching a video somewhere of somebody talking, or you'll end up talking to somebody and who'd probably give you advice or coach you or mentor you or whatever. So do you have any recommendations for people who are listening to this? Any book recommendations or movie recommendations? And if you want, you can also share what those books or movies have done for you, and so that people get into it sort of knowing what to expect.
Yeah, no, one of my favorite topics, but where do I start? Okay, let me start with books, then I'll probably touch upon one movie. I mean, there are a lot of movies, but I think this movie really stood apart for me. So let me start with some of the spiritual ones. Not that I'm a super spiritual person, but I do like reading through a few of the spiritual books. So one is the Upanishads, and another one is Zen Buddhism by T.T. Suzuki. I know, Vinesh, you're a big fan of Zen Buddhism, and I think you'll particularly like this one. Now, the reason why I like both books, and I put both the books together, is because they are extremely cryptic. They're really old books, and they talk about really old and ancient philosophies. And again, a lot of it originated from India, which all of us should be immensely proud about. But they're also immensely enjoyable to contemplate. They're not simple guides. But they're almost they present themselves as tough problems that you need to go and solve. The more you ponder over them, the more goodness you get out. They eventually become kind of these spiritual beacons, and there's a lot of personal lessons you can draw out of them. But again, it's for you to chew on. It's for you to think about and ruminate on. And these books will also give you, a great way to get rooted. And to really orient yourself in the things that you truly want to develop, and the things that you really want to pursue. And you really get a sense of what are things that are truly important to you. The next book in that same cryptic vein is this book by Nietzsche, which is Thus Spoke Zarathustra. It is cryptic, but it's not a spiritual book by any means. And again, all these books, these three books, for me, they're a great opportunity to draw some personal insights and to tap into these ancient philosophies to seek those lessons. But again, those lessons are obviously not in a simple way, but they're hidden in this cryptic way of writing, and it's for you to contemplate and unlock. And then another book. This is my all-time favorite. It's A Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Now, Aldous Huxley, he's a visionary. He wrote this book in 1933, and what he envisioned back then is slowly revealing itself even today. It paints a dystopian future, but weirdly, but also it is utopian for some of the characters in the book. For me, this book is a great example of how a person can maintain a mature and a rational outlook in the face of a fairly complex world that we live in, that has both dystopian and utopian characteristics. Great book. Another one of my favorites is On the Road. This is written by this person called Jack Kerouac. It's a wild book. It's one long, unending, breathless take on life. For me, it really opened up this world of what a wildly exciting life experience can be. Will I live that life experience? Likely not. But then for me, I could like vicariously live that experience through this book. This book was like stylistically was a masterpiece and opened up a whole world of other books and music for me. Any of the Hermann Hesse books are great. In my opinion, his books it is like an honest description of his own spiritual journey, which is filled with expectations, disappointments, battling paradoxes, and ultimately finding his swing and finding his goal in life. And then switching gears, and I want to just call out like one movie, which personally for me stuck because of the experience of watching the movie and the experience itself. So I clearly remember this was about 20 or 22 years ago. Pervez Tehrani, who we talked about, in a couple of instances, came to Vinesh and I and said that he's got this new movie. It's called One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and he's got this new Laserdisc player at home. And then we got excited, and then we went to his home and we started watching this movie. Now, I'm not sure if you remember.
I recall that.
Laserdiscs were these like large CD-like things. They're not DVDs, but I think it was pre-DVDs. And you had this movie in about like 3 different discs. And so we watched this. We watched it was a movie split into 3 parts. So we ended up watching 2 parts of it because they were 2 separate discs. But the 3rd disc turned out to be a bum disc. And the 3 of us were like really disappointed that we couldn't finish that movie, but we eventually did. But what that movie, the movie was a great movie about redemption, was one about personal freedoms, but it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about camaraderie. It taught me about kind of like standing up to authority and to really preserve independence. And to preserve that ability to have your own individual thought and for standing up for it. And there was a certain sense of heroism about it as well that I really loved. And again, that movie was special to me because we ended up it was an experience of watching it with my really close friends. And the anticipation of watching that movie, especially given that Pervez really talked up that movie. As Ben said, he has a great way of explaining things, and he did just a fantastic job telling us why One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was one of the world's greatest movies.
Nice. If I didn't know you personally, it would have been sort of difficult to keep track of everything that you said because there's so much of stuff out there. So just to recap, the Upanishads, the book on Zen Buddhism, Das Book Zarathustra by Nietzsche, On the Road by Jack Kerouac, any book by Hermann Hesse. If I recall, some of the books that we were in love with at that time were Damien, Siddhartha, I think also Nulp and Narcissus and Goldman. Any one of these that you would recommend over any of the others?
I would not. They're my equal favorites.
You would not. They're equal favorites. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Yes, I remember watching this with Pervez. I also remember where we watched it. We watched it in that house behind, in the outhouse. Okay, so the last but one question that I have for you is, a lot of people who I work with, who I coach, one of the things that they're trying to do, whether they're trying to achieve something at work or in their personal lives, or buy something, or get to a certain level of their lives, or corporate hierarchies, whatever, people in the end are trying to feel good. So what does this feel like to you? What is it? What are you feeling when you feel good? And also, you can say something if you like about how other people can do the same.
Yeah, that's a great question. It completely depends on what I'm feeling good about. Take for instance, if I just completed a long and arduous task. For me personally, it's a feeling of deep sense of relief and satisfaction that I get. Sometimes I would actually like go back and see what I've done just to enjoy it. I like doing that once in a while. Then I tend to do this. I tend to share this with the people that I'm really close to. And then we go and actually celebrate it. Like Chaitanya and I would go out to dinner and celebrate our small wins. Or I would just call my brother and share it with him. And I tend not to do anything fancy. But I do celebrate. I celebrate in a small way, and it really feels good when I do that. Another way of feeling good is honestly when I connect with someone that I really care about. It feels great when I'm able to like reach out to this person and connect with this person. And this one is really difficult to explain because this, helps me really feel grounded. It almost feels like it's coming back home. I feel more of who I am because I'm in this really comfortable space with this person to be myself, and really truly enjoy this moment of time. And these are, again, moments that I cherish, and I really look forward to having more of these. And then I keep coming back to this point of the everyday. And for me, this is really, really important. And it's almost about like, taking that moment in life to stop by the wayside and smell the flower. It comes back to that. And maybe it's part of like growing older that I tend to cherish the things that are happening around me more now than before. And it really unlocks these magical things because it's magical to be part of that satisfaction. And part of it is what you expect. Because it's the everyday, how the day is going to go. But the magic comes in when you start seeing and it's not just seeing, but you also experience this unexpected fleeting moments of joy. It's sometimes when you see that purple sunset, or when you get that lick from your dog, or when you kind of like rediscover an old joke, but you still laugh about it even though you know what that punchline is. It's amazing because it's unplanned. It happens every single day. And the best part is that you don't even need to go looking for it. And the last one for me, Vinesh, about feeling good is about kind of like that gratitude for some of the gifts that you've gotten. And these are not the gifts that you've developed, but these are the gifts that you've gotten. And you get gifts all the time. Some of these are small, some of these are big. But again, these are things that I'd like to be thankful for, and also have an opportunity to share it with others if that opportunity presents itself.
Nice. So I'm going to pick the bookends. What you said about gratitude, also what you said in the beginning about going back and revisiting something that you've accomplished, and you said you've done that a couple of times. I like what you said in the middle, and I want you to just tell me something else about it, because that's something a lot of people struggle with, which is just enjoying the little things in life. As cliched as it is, it's in every Instagram post, it's in every poster out there about, stopping and smelling the roses, enjoying the small things in life, the small things in life, the best things in life are free, and so on. But why is it that people don't do this? Or do you have any thoughts on how somebody can start doing this? Somebody who's so busy with life that they're not actually smelling the roses, or somebody who's so occupied with planning that, vacation to the Bahamas, but forgetting to enjoy coffee in the morning. Any thoughts on how somebody can do that, or start doing that? Develop that quality of enjoying the little things in life every single day.
So Vinesh, it is the way I look at it. It's not binary. It's not one versus the other. It's not that if you have a big goal for yourself and you're really motivated to go after it, then you're not able to stop and enjoy life experiences. Or the other way around. If you actually are one of the people who stop by and smell the roses, doesn't mean that you're not one that's motivated to go drive for big things. And so it's not a binary thing. So if you're able to reconcile both, and if you're able to enjoy your life experiences as you pursue your goals in life, life just becomes a little more richer, at least in my opinion. You're able to enjoy the everyday, but you're also able to enjoy the fruits of your labor, the fruits of like really going hard and charging after those big lofty goals. You're able to grow mature, you're able to grow and become mature, and you're able to also enjoy things around you, things as they present themselves around you. And personally for me, that would be a rich lived experience.
Okay, so I think this, from everything that you've said so far, one of the things that I want to point out, actually two things I want to point out. One is there's a lot of focus on telling yourself something. And I think I really want to bring that out to the audience that, a lot of times you can tell yourself things and you will sort of listen to yourself. And that's a good way to get started on a new behavior or a practice or habit. I also like that idea of asking yourself. So you mentioned this a couple of times in today's interview about asking yourself. You got to ask yourself this, you got to ask yourself that. And I think when you ask yourself, just like you listen to yourself, you can also answer yourself and that comes out. And finally, I want to bring this, I want to wrap up what Aadarsh just said by pointing out that it's not binary, it's not either or, it's not that you either smell the roses or go to the Himalayas. You can do both together, and I think that's an important idea for us to keep in mind. So Aadarsh, I'm pretty much done with most of what I have to ask you. The typical listener or viewer of my YouTube channel or podcast is somebody who's trying to get better at something, somebody who's trying to meet whatever goals they have. Sometimes it's weight loss, sometimes it's winning something that they're working towards, and so on. Do you have anything else to share with people who are probably listening to this or watching this?
So my experience of joy and deep satisfaction, call it what you want, but they have increased over a period of time. They've become a little more pronounced. And they've become so as I've tried to understand what I truly want. Not in a selfish way, but in a way to really get to know myself. Once I got a sense of what I wanted and started to focus on things that gave me joy and stopped doing things because I was expected to do so, because I needed to meet a social bar, or I was chasing after some random things to prove a social standing. And if I had an opportunity to stop and think about it, most of those are just constructs. Those are just stories we tell ourselves. And they take away from the real experience of joy that you feel when you do things that you really want to do. That's when you find yourself getting absorbed, as Vinesh calls it, like getting into the flow. And really start focusing or get into the way of focusing on things that you really want to do. And then what you find is that the outcomes are far better and they're far richer, and that give you that deep satisfaction that you really wanted to get.
Great. Thanks for that, Aadarsh. I think that, sort of sums up most things we've been talking about. I think finding out what exactly you want, devoid of social approval and public praise or whatever else, and getting to do more and more and experiencing more of exactly what you want is really what you're saying is the formula for a good life. So, folks, thank you very much for listening to this podcast, watching this video. If you like what you heard, if you like what you saw today, feel free to share this, send it to people who might benefit from it. If you have something to share about what Aadarsh just spoke about, if you want to share your experience of using some things that he said in your own life and what that did for you, you can go to my website, vineshsukumaran.com. You'll find my coordinates there. You can write to me, message me, email me. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can put your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll look out for that. Thanks a lot, Aadarsh, for your time. Thanks for those great insights. And as usual, this was like us talking over a beer or something. I think, exchange of ideas and great ideas coming out from you. Thanks a lot for that. Thanks for your time.
Always a pleasure, Vinesh. Really thrilled to be here with you today.
Awesome. Thank you very much. See you all soon in the next episode. That's going to be episode 6. Thank you.